Hi, welcome to a follow-up video to the one I made a couple of weeks ago about using Separation Studio. My name is Nigel Haywood. I'm with Kivo Yolano. The purpose of this is just to be a more advanced use of the program, and I'm going to go through a few things. Just a quick overview again of the menus and what they do, and how one changes the textile color from a dark to a light and then compensates for the change, how to delete merge colors, when to do that, when to use auto adjust and when to adjust separations, and then a quick look at the print commander. So let's get started. I'm going to open up a file that is a file that I downloaded. It's a piece of artwork from Van Gogh, Starry Night. You'll notice it's got a dark kind of background, so already this one would be suitable for dark textile. But one thing to remember with Separation Studio is it prefers to work with, it does really, really well printing on dark fabrics. And actually what it does when you open it is it automatically generates the separations, the spot colors, to simulate the process job that it sees. Now, a couple of caveats here is you need an RGB file for this to work best, and spot process only really works with TIFF files, PNGs, JPEGs. Does not work with Photoshop files, but will create Photoshop files that it can open again, so it creates its own internal, but it will not open native Photoshop files for a variety of reasons. So you'll notice here that this particular file, it dumps it out into an underbase because it assumes we're printing on a dark textile and a red, a blue, a gold, purple, green, turquoise. Let me go back to some of these again. And you'll notice what it's doing is it's giving us a simulation of the color and that we're going to print the blue here, and then we got to hit the top white here. So that's some of the assumptions that it makes when we open the program. So let's go through the overview of the windows and so on. You'll notice here that we have our proxy of the image, and on the left you see a zoom. We can zoom in, and I believe that that's also replicated here. Zoom in, zoom out, fill out window, fill on screen. Actually actual pixels too, which is kind of cool, so you can zoom in really, really close. And we can zoom out. On a Mac, I'm using the Option key, and you can zoom all the way out. So that's that. You'll notice too along the top that we have some buttons here that are frequently used, open, close, save, where we can change the textile, which I'll talk about in a minute. Generating an underbase, press fit, which I'll talk about probably in another video, and then how to auto adjust and print. Also a few other things, we can fit it on the screen, and we can see the active separations usually listed on the top. And usually we see that when we click on the actual positive, they call it proof positive along the top. So here we got enable and edit on underbase. So we got a red, a blue, a gold, a pink, turquoise, green, gray, and a hit on a white. On the left-hand side, we also have a couple of tools. We've got a drag tool. Usually that's used when you have multiple images open on the file. We only have one open, so it's useless. We've got the zoom tool, where we can zoom in, zoom out. We also have a lasso tool, like in Photoshop, where we can select certain areas. I want to do that particular sun, and I can zoom in on that if I choose to do that. All right. And I'm going to zoom out too, just again holding back the Option key lets me zoom back out. And we have some other tools here, similar things. A polygon lasso tool where you can actually draw a polygon around an area. And then I also have a square tool, square polygon. You notice too up here that we had a feathering, so I can add like a 5-point feather. And when I open it, it actually will increase it, the selection that I'm doing around the image that I'm selecting to. And that's usually for spreads and chokes and so on. You'll also notice here, excuse me, if I Command D, it will deselect it. You notice here on the left-hand side, we have a saturation tool, so we can select an area or do a global saturation. We can change the saturation of a specific color. We're going to look at that in more detail in a minute. We also have a desaturate tool, which does the opposite, obviously. And then we have an eraser tool, which allows us to remove the data that we may have just added. If we saturate, so it allows us to delete it. And obviously over here, we have a trash can, and we can delete separations, which I'm not going to do at this point. So we'll look at those in a minute. Real quick on the menus too, Let's take a look at the preferences. Now the preferences are really, really interesting, but by default it's set up to show as ink, and we can actually view this in film too. So if I select film, I'll show you in a second what that means. We can change the type of registration mark we have down, the line weight on the registration marks, and the layout of registration mark, crop marks, so on. So I'm going to click on accept, and you notice when I click on a separation, it shows me still in color. I've got to do one more thing and say view as film, and you'll notice now we'll actually see in the black and white what each one looks like. So the underbase looks like that. Let me zoom out so we can zoom in. You can see that's what the underbase piece of film will look like. The red, there's not a lot of detail on it, but the blue, a lot of detail, turquoise, green, and then the white. And again, if I want to toggle back to ink, I click on view ink. It might take it a few seconds, but you'll notice we go back to the view of the particular blue, the blue Pantone 300. And again, we can change those colors. It doesn't have to be Pantone 300. It can be whatever custom colors we want to use, but it will by default reference, looking at the image, what it thinks is the correct color that will go down. Anyway, so that's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this up real quick, and I'm going to open up another file I was working on a few days ago. And this was an actual file created by an artist friend of mine. His name is Brian Carl, lives down in Florida. And this is a file that he produced. And let's zoom in on it. It actually is a great piece of artwork. It was printed as a spot process. And you'll notice down here that they've actually, the proof positive, you'll notice that it by default has generated all these separations. By default on its own, it's determined that it thinks we need one, a red, a blue, a gold, pink, green, turquoise, and you can change these gray in order to reproduce that on this particular black textile. Well, okay, first things first, before we start making adjustments, let's take a look at the gold set, the gold piece of film, or the red in this case. Let's say I want to print this on a white t-shirt. Well, how would I do that? Well, a couple of things you can do is, first of all, we go click on view, textile, and let's change it to a white. You'll notice we can change it to yellows, grays, purples, but I'm going to say on white. You'll notice that's the graphic. Now, obviously, I don't need an underbase now, and that just does not look right. We have one other step. We need to tell Separation Studio to add a black plate here to compensate for the fact that we're now printing on a white t-shirt. Obviously, we use the textile, the black t-shirt textile for our black print on a black shirt, so we don't have that now, so we need to generate it. What we do is we click on Generate Black, and in this instance, because we're printing on a white textile, we select Sharper, and we reopen the file. And what's really cool about this program is it will automatically generate the black separation. So you'll notice that that will be the black film. And we obviously don't have an underbase on here that we're going to print, so that would be deselected. In fact, we'd probably end up deleting that. So we can take a look at that in terms of the ink again. So I go back to let's take a look at the red, view as ink, and because it's a big file, it takes a few seconds for it to catch up. So you see that's the red, and I can zoom in around specific areas. All right, and that does a really, really good job. So that's how we change the textile color. One thing to caveat though is that we do have to make sure that the underbase isn't on there. What I typically do is I don't delete it, but you could at this point is delete the separation, which I'm not going to do that. We can actually control that when we print. We just don't select it. If I select it, though, it comes up in the top there, in the top right. But I'm going to deselect it. It makes absolutely no difference. So let's look at the next thing. Let's see what can we do here to enhance this particular file. Well, again, the purpose of this software is to simplify an incredibly complicated process. So you can imagine that it actually does have a few features in here that allow you to automatically adjust things. And what we can do is we can, tell it to automatically adjust separations. And you'll notice here there's a button If I click on the little arrow there, that's all right. Ooh, it's giving me a hard time. Auto adjust. If I click on auto adjust, and you'll notice, I don't know if you saw that, I'm going to Command Z and go back. So it looks fairly washed out there. One thing that's great about this is that it does allow us to, it thinks it can automatically adjust based on a lot of the features that are in Photoshop. So we can take a look at that red plate only. So it definitely beefed up the red in that particular plate. But let's say I wanted to adjust, let's say I want to adjust the blue, make the blue, blue, or I want to add more energy to the print to make the blue. What I can do is right click and I can say adjust separation, and it comes up with a window. And what I can do is you'll notice that if you look around the top specifically, you don't really see it in the hands and the body. It's more on this top section here. Click on accept, and you'll notice that the blue is a lot more vibrant in the top section. I'm going to Command Z it and go back, and it does change it a little bit more purple there. And what I did was I made it, a lot more bluer. So you can do that globally, where you do the auto adjust, and I'm having a hard time with that one. Auto adjust, or we can just do it individually. So we can take a look at the gold, right click on it, adjust separation, and we can beef up. You can beef up the gold. We lose some of the nuances in the separations there, but you can see that that's there. You can see that in there. I'll zoom out. And again, this software, because it runs on a processor, it can kind of lag a little bit. But there you go. Yeah, you can see that that's a completely different looking file. It may not be the right file, but it is a completely different looking file. And then what I'd probably want to do is just check this out in terms of show as film. And I can zoom in, and you can see what it's going to look like in black and white, the red plate. And there's a couple of things we can do here too. We can choke spread each of these separations, which I'll look at later on. But this is just to show you how you can automatically adjust each separation. Now, one thing to do is to go through the separations and take a look at the images that are in there. And you can see there's quite a lot of purple in there. All right. There's quite a lot of green, turquoise. So there really isn't anything in here that I'd probably want to delete. This is probably one of those jobs where you would want to print all the colors. So for instance, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this actually would be a 9-color job. But let me close this one out, and we'll pull up the Van Gogh file, and I'll show you how we can merge and delete specific types of files or colors in a file. You'll notice here the red. There isn't a lot of red in there, not a lot of purple. So what you could do here on the purple specifically, you could say delete separation, and it really hasn't affected the overall file. The red, you'll notice the red is in the sun area, and if I deselect it, it does affect that print, but you may decide that it's not important to waste the whole screen. So what you can do is merge that. Let me say I merge that into the turquoise, and we're going to multiply it. You'll notice it. Multiply. And it actually disappears. It disappears at that point. So now we're into, and obviously the red is gone. But for the sake of running one less screen on this, so we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 colors on this particular print. We can do that. I really wouldn't want to change any of the other because there's a lot of detail in there. But that's just an example of how you might want to delete or merge a specific separation. So again, let's just go through the process of how to change the textile. So textile, print this on a white shirt. Let's go back to the original. It looks terrible. We go generate black, sharper, reopen the file, and it gives us a proxy, a really nice proxy. Click on auto adjust, and you'll notice it actually deepens, saturates the colors there on that particular file. So last thing, why do we print it? So let's go File, Print, and it comes up with Print Commander. And what's really cool about Print Commander is the particular printer that I'm using here isn't big enough to print these out, but that's okay. I only have 2 set up, but we have the separations in it. We can actually specify here what we're going to print. If it's going to be in halftone, or if it doesn't, it will actually print it as a div. But here we go, or solid, I should say. But if we're doing a halftone here, we can change it to ellipse, diamond, line, change the angle of it and the frequency, 45 lines, so on and so forth. We can turn off separations at this point too, so if we're not going to print the gray, or if I just want to reprint, do 2 of the screens, we decided we're going to do that, we can do that too. We obviously select the printer here, and this particular printer, you'll notice here because if you're using AccuRip, it actually has the AccuRip settings in here that we're going to use. And although we're not going to do that, I'm not actually going to make these films. And markings, we can change here the registration marks that we saw in the preferences, layout, make them thicker, thinner, so on and so forth. And nesting. So what's cool about nesting is if we have a printer that allows us to print more than one separation along a width, this will allow us to nest them along there. So that's it for this specific video. If you've got any questions, just contact me. Again, this is Nigel from Kiwo Yolano, and have a great day. Thanks.